Apparently, if you specifically write a book that the characters are a clan of insectile shapeshifters, it's a pretty easy way to make me curious enough to try it. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about Windlyn Vale by Tobias Youngblood. This was a review copy that was sent to me by the author. And the funny thing is, he was originally pitching me his series. This is a prequel novella. And the series is called The Projectionist, and it is an urban fantasy with some, different, quite a bit of fantasy elements. But I have a pretty bad track record with urban fantasy, so I replied back and was just kind of explaining I'm not really much for urban fantasy. A lot of the big ones have just not really worked for me, and I prefer high fantasy, and not our world and that kind of thing. But so he comes back and he says, well, how about this? I have a prequel novella, Windlyn Vale, which is very high fantasy and is insectile shapeshifters called the Vilsky. I'm assuming is how to pronounce it, the Vilsky. And those are our characters. And immediately I'm like, okay, I'm very curious about this because it was mentioned that some of these characters are in the main series as well. It sounds like, so it was mentioned that they existed. And I'm like, that does sound really curious. So worked for me really well. After reading this, I am curious enough about what this did to actually try that series out. So I'm definitely gonna have to give that a shot. And it may still not work for me. Urban fantasy is usually more miss for me than hit, but I'm curious enough just with the world. So that was kind of a fun thing, just finding out that there was something that's more high fantasy world building, more to my taste, to kind of dip in. So for me, that worked out really well. So let's talk a little bit about this one. So we're following our kind of main character is Siv, who is the seer for his clan. And we're at a kind of a tumultuous time where there's been an omen of a red tide, that's meaning potentially bad things are going to be happening. And then there's unrest. There's dire wolves coming into their forest, and other things kind of going on, and rumors of more going on also. And the setup is the Vilsky are again these like insectoid type of creatures who can shapeshift. Already just kind of cool and unique and different. But the most fun thing for me is all of them are insectoid. And so they do shapeshift, but they're it's called their Nakan form or Nakan form, I'm not sure. It's just their basic, and then they learn to shapeshift into other like animals and that type of thing. So you get the fun of shapeshifting, but also the insect creatures. And I think the author does a really good job of specifically writing so that the mannerisms are very much not human. And that's something I think people sometimes don't do as good of a job with when you're writing a non-human entity. I feel like it's probably more of a sci-fi thing, but I like the focus of what is unique. So like they don't cry. They have these sacs by their eye bulbs that like expand essentially instead of crying, and then they'll burst if there's enough of like the chemical in there that is signaling whether it's sadness or fear or like other things like that. So interesting things. Like they don't do just the normal things. Like there are descriptions of the things that they do, their tics, their mannerisms that are distinctly not human, and that's just really fun. And I feel like with the insect thing, it makes it almost, even though it's very much this is a fantasy story like through and through, but it almost makes it feel kind of sci-fi just because they feel very alien because they are, so to speak, even though they're, this is their world. And then the set of the world too is they live in this place called Windlyn Vale, which is this isolated pocket of civilization, and the rest of the world was destroyed by a great calamity. But the Father of Light was like their god, saved them and set aside this kind of haven, and so they can't venture outside of the surrounding area, the forest or the ocean or anything, and they're just there, and they have all of this society and these really interesting bits of culture as well. And so hit right off the bat with really interesting with the insects, really interesting world building as well. And it does have some twists and turns, because from that description there are a couple of different things I feel like that you probably come to mind when I describe that, of like, oh, I bet this happens, or oh, I bet this happens. And there are a couple of different things that you definitely expect to see with that sort of premise, like, tropes to follow, ideas. And I'll say some things may turn out the way you expect, but I pretty well guarantee that not everything is going to turn out the way you expect either. So there's some really interesting twists with the way that this is written that I thought were engaging. And just this was just very unique. And I found myself very curious to know more about the world, to know more of what's going to happen. So like I said, I won't explain anything about how what I've described ends up translating into later seeing these in an urban fantasy setting, because I don't want to spoil anything there. But I think it's so cool to have this sort of backstory of this very more high fantasy type of situation and these very different creatures and going in and seeing them that way. Now, I will say, funnily enough, because I specifically noted how much I liked the descriptions being very much not human while these are like the insectoid creatures, there was a specific passage where one of our main characters, Civ, has changed into a fox, and then the fox-like movements and things sounded more human. Was funny than the actual normal did, so that there was kind of that. And really, I don't have a ton of nitpicks here. I do think parts of this feel a little bit rushed because it's a novella, and that's sort of one of those things that you get. This is more so just setting up things that are going to be coming later, but I think it does a good job of how everything makes sense. There was one thing that when it happened, I'm just like, well, why on earth would they do it like this? This seems very suspicious, and it's kind of an instigating event, but it actually makes a ton of sense thinking about it too. And as you find out more of what's going on, why very specifically, like, that was such a big event that would happen there, and why certain characters acted the way that they did, being more complicated than is readily apparent as you're going on. So definitely interesting times there. There are a few things here and there too with not anything that's like super like big to there, but like there's a description of something being a few yards away, like magnum opus, a couple of those phrases that are just slightly out of place in the setting of the world, but honestly is nothing that was like really jumped out at me or anything like that either, so I had a fun time with it. But I feel like those are really normal fantasy things, but my brain always like notes and picks out, so that people have made jokes about some other books that have more of that as well. But otherwise, yeah, really fun one. I do, if you're interested at all in like I said, the Insectile shapeshifters, it's just, that was the selling point for me. That sounded really interesting, and it was, and I had a good time with this one. And then I definitely, whenever I get to the actual, like, the Projectionists, I think the first book is called Grave Covenant, if I recall. Once I get to that, I will definitely update there and have to see how that turns out. But yeah, this was a fun one. It is quite short, as you can see, so definitely worth giving a check out if that sounds interesting. That's really all I have on this one, though, so make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizard of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.